So no shortage of interest, no shortage of buzz with regard to RPA. Some would say it's the next optimal solution beyond work being performed solely by humans. What's wrong with work being performed solely by humans?
If we look at the functions that are performed in almost all the enterprises, whether it is finance, HR, customer service, they are all pretty manual, which in a way would lead to monotony, would also like if you have to really scale the size of the operations, would require more humans to be trained, so which means that you have a higher cost for the training. Secondly, humans performing the same task over and over again tend to make mistakes. So you have the cost of correction in the errors. And finally, like if you really look at the overall work that is being done, there is no creativity, where human potential is now spending most of their time doing these manual and repetitive tasks, and that's where the RPA technology can play a big role in terms of automating the manual activities, reducing the errors that are typically do exist when humans perform the job. And finally, it is a very, very scalable solution.
So Naresh, though, you skipped over cost save. I want to come back to the other benefits. And I know that's not the biggest benefit, not the most strategic benefit, but we're seeing 20 to 40% labor cost reduction out there. Do you dispute those numbers? Do you see different? What are you seeing?
In fact, we do see the same savings for a few business functions. The savings are actually quite higher. Just a recent example for a large retailer, the invoice processing, and when I talk about invoice processing, it is the exceptions that are generated from the invoice processing and which gets to humans for resolution. Now what we have seen is that even when it gets to exceptions, most of the steps that are required to be performed for correcting those invoices are pretty manual in nature and based on a set of business rules. Those are the same steps which can now be automated using RPA technology, which can support multiple underlying technologies and automate over 70% of the transactions.
So let's play out for that case study. Nothing better than a case study. In that example, what was that client looking for? Why did they call you in? What initiated the discussion, if you will, and then what were some of the additional benefits that just were driven off of that?
So there were primarily three reasons. One is their business was growing. And
okay, so scale in that case, they needed to scale.
The business was growing, but at the same time, the systems that were processing all those invoices, they had to interface with multiple other systems to support the newer types of invoices, and that led to many exceptions as well. So while the business is growing, but at the same time, the cost of operations was also going up significantly. Number two, even when we look at the kind of exceptions being manually resolved by humans, there is always an element of mistakes, and that mistakes they can lead to large revenue leakages.
Sure, okay.
So that was the second reason for revenue leakage, and the third was the overall cycle time. Exceptions when generated and where humans need to be involved, those lead times could be much longer, which is not only just impacting the company, but also the vendors, the customers, because now you are always playing a catch-up game.
So I wanted to shift over from kind of definition to process, right? We have many members within our network who the light bulb finally goes off and they're ready to take the first step. What is, from your experience, what is the first step, at least in how you approach it?
So I have a one-liner advice for everyone who is looking to select a process. Any process which is currently well documented, or which you can write on a sheet of paper and hand it over to me in the first meeting and ask me to perform the job, that is the right candidate for robotic automation.
Okay, so here you are, you're in a meeting, they slide that piece of paper across the desk and you look at it and you say, yes, we can do that. At that point, what do you do? Is it, I'm just getting tactical for a moment, is it a POC, is it a pilot? How long does it take? Is someone paying for that? What kind of resources they need? Because that is a critical step, right? That's when you really, both sides decide to take at least the first step. So how does your organization address that?
So I would say there are three steps to drive automation. Number one is identifying the right process, which are candidates for automation of these manual steps. Number two, having the right tool, selecting the right tool for automation, and which is where Assist-Edge RPA provides the capability to automate activities using a set of configurations. And number three, it's about process mining and continuous learning from the automations that have been delivered, and then reconfiguring the automations to drive more automations.
Okay, but then again, tactically, how much time should they allocate for that POT or POC? Is that something that takes, is it 30 days, 60, 90? I mean, that's kind of the range I've seen. What do you recommend?
So a POC would range anywhere from a week to two.
Oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's short, okay.
Yeah, this is unlike most of the other POCs that companies try with different kind of initiatives where POCs run anywhere from 1 month to
Right.
a few months. RPA is pretty quick. It's all about configuration.
Right.
And we have had instances where we have delivered the POCs where they shared us the process with us, and we delivered the POC on the same day.
Okay, so on the back end of that POC, then what happens? At that point, do you go enterprise-wide, or what is there another baby step there?
So our advice to most of the companies has been that you can take baby steps, or once you have seen that the technology works in your environment, you can really accelerate automation and drive adoption across all of the business functions. And there are three steps to drive more automation and to accelerate automation. Number one, setting up the governance model, which comprises of the key sponsors, the business SMEs, the implementation team who is going to configure these robots, and the support teams.
Okay, let me stop you right there. So for that team, that sounds like a large team. How many people? Is this 3, 4, 5, 6 people?
So it would be in single digits. It is not
Okay.
a big team because primarily it is going to be still driven at a business function level. So you would have, let's say, as an example, on the governance model, if you need to have business SMEs, you would need
Right.
1 or 2 business SMEs based on that process. The configuration team or the implementation team could be common, who would just pick up those processes which have been prioritized or qualified for automation, and then start from there.
Okay, so number one, governance, and number two?
Number two would be to qualify the right processes for automation by defining a good gating criteria, which would help identify the right processes for automation, which provides immediate benefits. Also look at the complexity of the processes and what kind of qualitative metrics you can really achieve by driving these automations. Number three would actually be the actual configuration. Taking the processes from the business SMEs and rolling out these automations and continuously monitoring these automations and retweaking the business rules within those configurations to drive more automation.